All my life, I've been a global traveller, seeking cultures and traditions that are just as vibrant today as in times past. We're opening doors, stepping into worlds most never see, because that's where the best stories are, behind closed doors. We're sharing stories of local life and the working world, plus spending time with some of the most interesting people you'd ever want to meet. It's truly privileged access that always leaves me excited to explore more. In Germany, the River Rhine cuts through steep hillsides and craggy cliffs to reveal quaint villages of half-timbered houses around every bend. This 80-mile stretch between Bingen and Bonn makes up the Middle Rhine, but the area is more affectionately known as the Romantic Rhine. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, this idyllic setting inspired Rhine Romanticism, an artistic movement during which artists decried industrialization and turned instead to nature and the past for inspiration. Writers, painters, and composers, Lord Byron, William Turner, and Richard Wagner among them, journeyed along this sublime waterway, coming away forever changed by the experience. This historic river inspired such works as Wagner's The Ring Cycle, Heine's poem The Lorelei, and some of Turner's finest landscapes, the result of several voyages along the Rhine. In 2002, a portion of the Middle Rhine was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, in part because of its more than 40 medieval castles, such as Löwenstein Castle, once home to Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf von Habsburg. 12th century Starlet Castle, built by the Archbishops of Cologne. And Marksburg, the only Rhine castle never conquered. Even more intriguing is Pfalzgrafenstein, a toll station built on an island in the middle of the river. Chains once stretched from this island across the entire Rhine. In order to pass, one had to pay a toll, a major source of medieval revenue for the castle landowners. This majestic waterway, long the domain of knights and princes, painters and poets, offers a fascinating window into the past, as well as some of the world's most spectacular vistas. The next time you're in Europe, I hope you'll take the opportunity to explore the romantic Middle Rhine for yourself. In fairy tales, deep woods are often home to magical castles. And in Germany's dense Spessart forest, it's actually true.
Normally they have the castles in very open places. But here it's very hidden and closed. You will not find it if you don't know there is a castle. In all the wars, even in the 30 Years' War, they never found it. Never.
Schloss Mespelbrunn was born not from the daydream of a wealthy aristocrat, but rather from an act of selfless heroism.
There was one of the member family Echter who helped the Duke Archbishop in a very dangerous situation, and he helped him to stay alive. He carried him on his shoulders as long as he had to. He never stopped, and then the Duke Archbishop woke up and was happy to be alive and said, "You saved my life. I will give you this place as a present for your family."
Carved from nature in 1412, Mespelbrunn was at first a hunting lodge. a place of bountiful feasts and tall tales, of jolly clansmen and proper nobles, of brave knights matching wits with elusive deer, wild boar, and on occasion unruly bandits, and even radical Hussites, as the Ector family sought to tame this wild land. In the 16th century, a new generation reshaped the castle into the more pleasing form we see today.
200 years ago, this was completely closed. You couldn't look through the archbows. But one day they decided to take these parts out and put a romantic archbow in. And that was the best what happened to the house.
Schloss Mespelbrunn overflows with distinctive details, all of which have somehow survived the continuing threat of war and weather, except for one inadvertent casualty that came in World War II.
They covered this in wood to keep it safe, but they didn't know they would have the most hardest winters in their life. Those winters in the Second World War were extremely cold. After the war, when they took the cover off, the pieces came off because the water dripped between and froze. So no weapons, but the frost destroyed it a little bit.
One key symbol that has transcended the centuries, along with the story behind it, is the Ector family crest.
The 3 rings are from the family Ector. And the family Ector had those crests for many, many, many centuries. There was a very strange and wonderful story from this family. There were 3 very strong boys, and they had always trouble with other strong knights. And once they had a fight, and one of the other knights was killed. They were taken to court, and they were banished to live in the woods. And they became fair game for hunters and everybody who came upon them. During these years in the woods, the 3 boys, they said, once in a month we should meet. And so when they had their meeting point, they had to put the horses together. And after they came free, they took the 3 rings in memory of those years when they had to put their horses, to fix their horses, on that meeting point.
And so the spirit of the 3 brothers lives on. Mythical Mespelbrunn is a rare gem, bathed in beauty. A Renaissance-style masterpiece that captures the essence of life in the 16th century. I hope you too will do what I did and explore Schloss Mespelbrunn for yourself, and perhaps even encounter its signature moat trout. In this splendidly serene setting, you almost forget there's an outside world, and you'll find yourself in absolutely no hurry to leave. Overlooking Austria's remarkable Wachau Valley is the gracious Göttweig Abbey. Built on land donated by Passau's Bishop Altmann, this stunning Baroque monastery complex, inspired by Spain's Escorial, is actually the 3rd version, with fires destroying most of the monastery in 1580 and again in 1718.
The monastery is 900 years old. Göttweig is a very special place with a great history. It is a spiritual place, a place for freedom, a place for peace. It is a place where the people come together and they go away with much power in the heart.
Göttweig is a Benedictine monastery, an order founded by Saint Benedict of Nursia, a 6th century monk who established the Abbey of Monte Cassino on a hilltop southeast of Rome around 529 AD. An astute and critical scholar of religious practices, Saint Benedict clarified the way European monasteries are organized, how monks should live and work, and what the focus of their religious life should be. His thoughts evolved into the book The Rule of Saint Benedict, a guide for balancing prayer, reading and work. Ora, lege et labora in Latin.
Ora, pray, labora, work, and lege means to read. Saint Benedict ordered every monk of his monastery must learn to read and to write. Everybody should read the Gospel for himself. In the daily life of the monks until now, every monk there is a time reserved to read.
And I understand also during meals, you have silent meals, but there is a reader.
Yes, the reader has the possibility to eat afterwards. We read during the lunch and in the suppers in the evening,
Yes.
both.
And I noticed in your private quarters, you have a special reading chair.
I like to sit there reading. It makes the view wide and large.
From the beginning, Göttweig has operated differently than most Benedictine monasteries.
We are not so contemplative in our life like other Benedictines. For example, the French monasteries are all contemplative. They do not go outside.
Göttweig always focused on outreach, which was a blessing when Holy Roman Emperor Joseph II began his massive reforms.
Monasteries which have been contemplative, Joseph II says that is not necessary. We need parish priests, we need monks and sisters in the hospitals, we need monks and sisters in the schools. All others you can forget. He dissolved 700 monasteries, but Göttweig survived.
Today, Göttweig continues to focus on the world beyond the monastery walls.
We care for many parishes, 35 at the moment. We take care for schools.
You are teaching in the high
Teaching,
schools.
yes, philosophy. And we have some in the hospitals. We have a house for retreats and a house for young people.
I understand you've also gotten involved with the immigration situation.
Yes, that's nothing new for us. Every crisis, if it has been Poland, if it has been Croatia, we have always refugees in our monastery. And at the moment, it's families of Syria. We try to help so good as possible.
While Göttweig is headed by Abbot Columban, I was surprised to learn he has a cabinet of sorts, and that all the monks have a voice in leadership and the direction of the monastery.
I'm elected by the brothers, and then there is the second man on my side is the prior, then the third man is the sub-prior, and then the monks. There are 5 persons, and if there is a problem in the monastery, I call these 5, come and we have a discussion how to solve.
So every vote for every layer counts equally?
That's equally, yes.
Equal count,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a democratic system which reached back to the 6th century of Saint Benedict. It's no creation of our time, but it's very, very modern.
To fund Göttweig's many parishes and support programs, the monastery's extensive lands are put to work, with more than 13,000 acres of woodlands being selectively harvested to ensure this treasured forest endures the test of time. The slopes around Göttweig are also used to produce the grapes that create the wines for which the Wachau is famous. Grüne Veltliner, Riesling, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, as well as wines used in Holy Mass. And then there's the Marille, another Wachau favorite. It's also grown under the watchful eye of Göttweig monks, in partnership with nearby orchards and right on the monastery grounds.
That's very nice.
Transformed into tasty juices, jams and even schnapps, ultimately the Marille is yet another way for Göttweig to continue and enhance its community outreach. Though Göttweig has survived nearly 10 centuries, serving amid the distractions of the modern world has perhaps never been more daunting, requiring absolute focus from every monk.
I think the rule of St. Benedict will help the monk to be a man who has a good disposition to heaven, but also good disposition to the earth. It is important that the monk lives his vocation, not only in the monastery, but also outside the monastery. I think everybody can be happy in his life. If I'm in a family, or if I'm alone, if I'm a monk in a monastery, it is important that I live that. What I see, that is my vocation.
At Göttweig, I experienced calmness, a sense of peace, and moments of spontaneous joy. It wasn't the world I'd imagined, but rather one rich in history and spirit, shared by some of the friendliest people I've met.
We are delighted to welcome Viking guests to Göttweig Abbey.
Göttweig opens the door to an intriguing world that I found fascinating. I hope you too will have the chance to explore its many treasures. In the heart of Koblenz lies a serene memorial. One of unfathomable history, of unshakable faith and culture. An unexpected oasis of tranquility and a long-standing witness to turbulent times.
Soweit ich weiß, der Friedhof ist circa 1000 Jahre alt.
The cemetery is approximately 1000 years old, and it provides a strong, enduring symbol of continuity.
While now a place of solitude, as a key part of the Jewish community, it was once viewed as a threat and dealt with as such during the tragic days of World War II.
Dieser Friedhof hatte sehr schwer aber erlitten in die Zeiten bis heute.
This cemetery has suffered greatly, especially during the darkest days of the Holocaust. Koblenz was not immune from the persecution that swept across Europe.
Families were relentlessly harassed and fled the city. Those who didn't were sent to concentration camps, including Koblenz's decorated Jewish veterans who had proudly served Germany in World War I.
Authorities even looted the Jewish cemetery, seizing headstones and using them as steps near the Lützel train station. To me, it's still incomprehensible.
Das ist nicht nachvollziehbar.
After the war, the headstones were brought home, but all of the 1,000 Koblenz Jews had vanished. No one was left who knew where the headstones belonged, so they were placed along the main walkway, an impromptu promenade to honor the dead.
Rebuilding the cemetery was straightforward, but re-establishing our community, for that we needed outside help.
Today, the Jewish community has been restored to pre-war levels, largely by the faithful from former Soviet states. So the predominant language is neither Yiddish nor German, but Russian. Another surprise was finding a synagogue on the cemetery grounds. In Judaism, they're always kept apart, but in the aftermath of war, options were few.
Many people took great risks to keep Judaism alive in Koblenz, including a Christian who hid our Torah, a brave act that would have surely brought death if discovered. He was later given an honorary grave in our cemetery.
In this intimate space, new generations are taught not only the Jewish way of life, but also the importance of acceptance and the welcoming of all people.
Our home here is open to everyone. Christians, Jews, Muslims, all people.
Christen, Juden, Muslim, alle Menschen in der Welt.
In the hope that we should all live together, peacefully.
Miteinander leben.
I found the Jewish cemetery in Koblenz to be a deeply moving experience. And I highly recommend this fascinating cultural treasure. Tucked into the forested banks of Germany's Main River is Schloss Löwenstein. This prized location hand-picked long ago.
The wife of our ancestor, she sent out riders and they checked all the villages along the river where the parish books showed the best weather, the most fresh wind, the least fog, and she bought the land, so that was done.
The whole estate is so full of nature, you lose your way. Nothing is comparable to this spot.
In this idyllic setting, the Löwensteins thrived. Unlike most, the family's rise to prominence came not militarily, but via a more interesting route.
One of our philosophies was it's much nicer to grow by marriage than by war. So we never won anything by war, but we won quite a bit by marrying nice girls with a bit of property attached to it.
This grand estate was the only French-style palace in Lower Franconia. The vision of Rémy de la Fosse, architect of the Château de Versailles. Official archives trace the family roots back to the year 900, and reminders of their enduring legacy and traditions are plentiful. But one of the family's most precious possessions cannot be found adorning these walls, or for that matter, anywhere within the confines of this grand palace. That treasure is Homburg-Kalmuth, a rugged escarpment with a remarkable combination of soil and microclimate. Over the centuries, the Löwensteins have cultivated some of the region's most desirable grapes along this imposing cliff. Despite inclines of up to 80 degrees, the property is a priceless asset for viticulture.
Of course, the quality of the wine always depends on the spot. So just by history and tradition, the aristocratic families have the best spots.
Winemaking grew into a passion when the family discovered the grapes actually thrived in the withering heat and unique geology of this ancient place.
The name already is pre-Celtic, so it's a very, very old name, and it means a warm place where you can stay over winter.
In the 12th century, monks built the nearly 8 miles of vined terraces. But 1,000 years before that, the site was planted with another crop, by the Romans.
The pharmacist of the Roman legion found out he could plant all his medical herbs and not import them from Rome in a dried version, but he had them fresh. We had this checked by a botanist, and they discovered 120 Roman medical plants, all coming from the southeast Mediterranean, and they have survived 2,000 years.
For us, we feel all this history, and the microclimate there is very special. It's probably the warmest microclimate in Bavaria. We totally feel Mediterranean, and with the Mediterranean feeling, we have the Mediterranean taste in the wine.
Harvesting this bounty is anything but easy.
There are no machines, it's all hand harvest. The sun burns down, it's steep, it's difficult to hold the balance. It's a challenge. but the quality is so well known that we keep on.
After the harvest, new wines are born in the ultra-modern Weingut, built within the historic stables. Combining insight and expertise, the grapes receive exceptional care.
On one level, they are pressed by a technology which is the softest you can have, and then they are pumped in one level into the barrels.
Grapes from the Rheingau and Baden add depth and diversity. It's a hands-on process inspired by centuries of acquired wisdom.
We make wine in a very natural fashion. When the grapes come here into the cellar, nothing is added to it. No chemical, of course, no sugar. That means it's very clear and natural.
Each vintage is infused with the character of the season, the enchanting power of nature untouched. Schloss Löwenstein is a rare treasure, the essence of working aristocracy and an enduring wine legacy in the heart of Franconia. Join us again here on Viking.TV as we open more doors around the world on our quest to explore the planet's most fascinating cultures and delightful traditions.